In this demonstration, we're looking to complete a few different tasks here. So we're going to go into our parameters and we're going to specify how labels should be generated for our brick and mortar stores. And then we're going to take a look at some reports that can be used for generating labels. And after that, we'll start getting into we'll set up some shelf label reports and we'll generate some and print some shelf labels. And so let's get started with those parameters here first then. So we're going to go to our navigation pane and we'll scroll to the right here to find headquarters setup. And then we're looking from here for parameters. And we're going to look at the retail shared parameters. So these retail shared parameters, they have a tab here specifically for labels. So let's select the labels one here. And what we can choose here is if we want to have product labels here set up for all retail stores or just our local store only or for none. So we can choose any of these options here. So I could set it for local store if I need to, and same with shelf labels here. So I could determine whether these should be applicable to all of our retail stores, just local, or to none of them. So we have it set to all retail stores here, and so we should be good to continue on from here then. So our next step in the process for us then is going to be to set up the shelf label reports. So we can use these reports then, and we can select when they're going to generate labels. So let's go to our navigation pane again, and we're going to be looking in the barcodes and labels section. So we have an option in here for the shelf label reports. So this shelf label reports page here, this is where we can assign the shelf label report that should be used. So it's currently set to retail label A4 portrait 3x5 shelf. So if I were to click this new button, in theory I should be able to add a report here and decide what report should be used for shelf labels, but it's already entered in here. So if I were to try to do it again, it would just tell me it already exists. So this is where we can assign the shelf label reports though. So there's nothing else we need to be doing with it at this point though. So from here then, we can generate and print our shelf labels. So let's go back to our retail module then. And in barcodes and labels here, we're going to choose the option to print shelf labels. And it asks us the report name we want to use. So that's what we just already had specified. The report label A4 portrait 3x5 shelf. So as far as printing goes here, we're going to need to determine what store number we're looking at here. So we could choose our store here, and we're just looking at all of our individual stores with this. And then we also want to look at the label valid on the date. So what date's going to be on the label here? So it's set for 8/11, that's set for today. So we should be good with that option. Well, now, let's look at some of our options at the top here. So the first is for print labels. So it says there are no labels to print for us here, and so we can't actually follow through with that step. Now, reprint labels, this would allow us to reprint any labels that we've already printed in the past. Now, labels to print here, this will show us a list of labels that need to be printed here. So let's try this out here. So I'll click New, and we have a label here. We need to choose the item number that we're creating a label for. So let's choose our first item there on our list. And so we have our item that's added here. And if we were working with any variants for this item, we could select it here. It wants to know what type of label. So is this going to be shelf or product? So we'll keep it set to shelf. And it wants to know the valid date on this. So we'll have that set for today. We could also include some other information on this, like the report name we want to use. So this is where we could choose the 3x5 shelf option there. And if we want to include any additional text on our label, we could, or a comparison price on the label. So if we wanted to have a comparison on the price to show our price is better or possibly even worse, we could set up a comparison there. We can also choose the quantity and the unit of measure. So let's choose a quantity here. We'll set this to each. So let's then click Save. And then we're going to go back here. So we're back to our shelf label printing here at this point. And if we click Labels to print again, we can see that we have a label there that needs to be printed. So let's then choose Print Labels again. Once it's done processing, you should see at the bottom of your screen here in your internet browser an option to open or save a PDF. Let's click Open on that. Asks us how we want to open this file. Yeah, Word should work for this. It's asking us here if we want to convert this to a Word document. That should be fine for what we're doing. We are warned here, though, that it might not look exactly like our PDF would have. So it's going to be more like a Word document, and so it could lose some of its text and such. Here then, we can see the results of our report then that's printed. So here's what our label would look like then. So then we could then go ahead and print this off however we would need to. So when we're done, we can close out of Word here, and we're back to our shelf label printing now. And so now let's take a look at our printed labels. So here we can see that label that we printed off. So it just gives us some information about it, and it's basically the same thing we saw when we created the label to print. So we can back out of this now. And then our last option here is to create a label by product. So what I can do here is I can create a label based on the store I need. I can choose the product here. And I can set this up so it would run as a batch or process here. So I could set it on a schedule, and we could print off labels every week for this product if we needed to, or however amount of time we might need. Then once we're done here, we can just click OK. And if there was a label set up for this product, then we could then have it printed at this point here for us. So you want to make sure that you have label setups for your product in the system here. Otherwise, you'll have to use the other method to print off your labels here and select labels to print. And then once we're done with everything here, we can click OK. And we are done working on these labels then.